Great to see everyone. Thanks for joining us for our youth series on the book of Ruth. Today we'll be talking about chapter 3. Quickly, in chapter 2, we remember that Ruth had made a great sacrifice to go with her mother-in-law, and she ventures out into some people's fields to find a way to provide for them. She asked for permission to go on Boaz's field, and Boaz finds out that she's a woman of great character, and he shows her great favor, gives her great things. When we look at this chapter, it reminds us that following God often requires sacrifice, but that God does notice when we do the right things and we have the right character, and He honors those who work hard and don't just sit around and complain and wait. God has opportunity waiting for us, even when we don't see it. I want you to start today with a simple question to talk about with your group. Do we sometimes act differently when we know that no one is watching, or when we think we can get away with something? Go ahead and talk about it. Right on. Hopefully you had some great conversation to start off today's session. We're going to jump right into chapter 3. Read along with me from the beginning. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you? Now is not Boaz, our kinsman, whose maid you were? Behold, he winnows barley at the threshing floor tonight. Wash yourself, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your best clothes. Go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. It shall be when he lies down that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go and uncover his feet and lie down. Then he will tell you what to do." She said to her, "All that you say I will do." So she went down to the threshing floor, and it did according to all that her mother-in-law had commanded her. So here we have the season. Barley season is coming to an end, and Ruth and Boaz have been getting to know each other in a group. Now this is a side note, great dating advice. Hang out with people in groups. Great way to see how people treat one another. How people treat people in groups may be an indication how they'll treat you privately. Now let's continue to go. Naomi gives her this advice to dress up and go and put herself in this very vulnerable position. This seems, to me at first reading, it seems like bad advice. But there's more going on than what we first read. Now Ruth has the right, as a relative, to demand of her kinsman redeemer. So Boaz would be a kinsman redeemer, meaning that he had the right to redeem the family. When they lost their husbands, he could marry so that they could own their property and continue to hold on all that was Elimelech's family. So she tells her to go and to lie at his feet with this plan that seems really weird. But what she's doing is she's asking Ruth to go and get humbly before Boaz rather than demand, and to see if he is who they hoped that he might be. I want you to stop and ask this question with your group. How do you decide if someone's a good person to take advice from? And then how do you decide if that advice is good and if it's something that God would want? Amazing. Now, no matter who you get advice from, you need to remember that the Holy Spirit is always there and always wanting to speak with us. Also, we must make sure that we understand that any advice we get, if it's good advice, that we have to continue to do things the way that God wants. There's many ways to do the same thing. So we want to make sure we do them rightly. Let's continue reading in our story, starting at verse 7. When Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came secretly and uncovered his feet and lay down. It happened in the middle of the night that the man was startled, bent forward, and behold, a woman was lying at his foot. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I'm Ruth, your maid. So spread your covering over your maid, for you are a close relative." So it seems kind of like a weird thing, but why is Boaz sleeping with the grain? Well, he's probably sleeping out there to protect it, so that thieves and robbers don't come and steal. So he's probably quite startled to find somebody in the dark. This seems strange to us that she would go and lay at his feet, but it's an act of humility And when she's asking to be covered, she's actually proposing to Boaz. She's asking Boaz to take her as his wife. Back in these times, people, and even today in some cultures, people would spread their cloak over a woman to show a sign that you were taking her under your protection, and that she could have what you have. She had the right as a relative to demand this and to put him in a hard spot, but that's not what she did. Humility is sometimes hard. Sometimes we see star athletes demand that their coaches do these rather than asking if they could play this role. And different people find it hard to understand what it means to lay down and come. I want you to ask your group, do you sometimes find it hard to be humble? Can you tell of a time that you made yourself small for the sake of someone else or to better a situation? Let's be honest. This was a big risk for Ruth to take. Not only could she be rejected, maybe she finds out that Boaz isn't who she thinks he is. She's alone in the dark with this guy, and maybe he's not that great of a guy. Let's continue to read to see what happens. Starting at verse 10. Then he said, "May you be blessed of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown your last kindness to be better than the first by not going after young men, whether poor or rich. Now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do whatever you ask, for all my people in the city know that you are a woman of excellence. Now it is true that I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Remain this night, and when morning comes, if he will redeem you, good, let him redeem you. But if he does not wish to redeem you, then I will redeem you as the Lord lives. Lie down until morning." So she lay at his feet until morning, and arose before one could recognize another. And he said, "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." I'm sure many of you, like me, when I was a teenager, I had some different rules. I was not allowed to have a girl in my room unless the door was open, and definitely not throughout the night. Sometimes we have rules like this, and we avoid situations like this because we know that sometimes if we play with a lighter and kindling, we get fire. So Boaz wakes to find a younger woman that he was attracted to lying at his feet with no one around. It would have been really easy for them to both be dishonorable and just rush the love that they had, but both of them seemed to show that they wanted to be honorable people who did things the right way. Boaz tells her that he would like to marry her, but there's someone else who has a greater right to marry her, a family member that actually is the first kinsman redeemer. So they come up with this plan so that no one sees that she was there. And this isn't because they're wanting to hide that she was there, but more so that Boaz wanted to make sure that he could approach this relative, that he could explain the situation, and he could give them in the right way, first offering at being her redeemer. I want to ask you this question. Why is it so important for us to do the right thing even if we can get what we want faster or an easier way? The truth is, they probably could have decided to get married and express their love that very night and done things in a rushed, dishonorable way. But they chose not to. Doing the right things many times it can be hard, it can be difficult. But taking the easy road eventually comes with consequences for our choices. If they had chosen to go ahead, the elders and the citizens of the town would have heard and they've at least been looked down upon. They both would have lost their good reputations, and they probably would have had many other consequences if they had followed that path. But they didn't do it. Let's continue to read, starting at verse 15. Again he said, "Give me the cloak that is on you, and hold it." So she held it, and he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "How did it go, my daughter?" And she told her all the man had done for her. She said, "These 6 measures of barley he gave for me. For he said, 'Do not go to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" Then she said, "Wait, my daughter, until you know how the matter turns out, for the man will not rest until he has settled it today." I'll stop there. So Boaz He's a good dude. He's trying to do things right, and he doesn't want to get this proposal. He doesn't want to send Ruth away without a gift. I read in one commentary that, he wanted to give her some flowers. He wanted to do something nice for her after she came with this gesture of humility to propose to him. He's happy that Ruth has come, and only time will tell if he is going to get to have her as his wife, but he wants to give to her regardless. He tells her that he will not stop until he finds out if she has another redeemer or if he gets to be the lucky man. This is a picture for us of God providing for her again because she continues to do things in a humble way. Our intentions in the private and the public, they matter. It seems that Ruth chose to give Boaz a choice rather than to force him into some kind of corner. Now, it might have been a little bit sneaky. It might have been a little bit of a different way. But ultimately, she gives him the opportunity to be a part of the decision, that they can choose to partner together. I want to ask you this question, and you ask your group. When making decisions that we can make without others knowing, is it important to consider how it affects other people and what God thinks? And if so, how do you guard against taking the easy path and make sure that we do what is right at all times, even if we can be secretive? Now, this story is probably not how you want your proposal to go and how you want to end up with somebody one day. But we can take from this story such great things, that Boaz sought to do things the right way. Well, thanks for joining us today on Ruth chapter 3. We're really excited to see chapter 4 and how things end. Why don't you take some time as a small group, just talk through the chapter, talk through the first and second chapter just a little bit, recap, and take some time to pray for one another and talk about what it means to find yourself in God's will. Have a great week.